Good morning, beautiful people. Sunshine. Oh wow. Those trees. Okay. Happy Memorial Day weekend. It's Monday. And I'm coming to you from the road less traveled. As you can see, this road obviously is kind of being taken back over by nature, which I think is awesome. Yeah. This'll do. It's been a productive weekend as far as realizing where I'm at and what I've been holding on to trauma-wise that has been having some effects on my decisions that I've been making with my life. And I want to make this video to put the end to it. I'm going to put an end on these traumas and allowing it to affect the decisions that I do make. And by doing that, first we have to be aware of it, which is something that at some point in my life I was aware of, and I felt like I dealt with it back then. And now here we are years and years later, and I find myself ugly crying about it, or realizing that it still had some effect on me. So I'm just gonna sit down right here. I even had to write it down yesterday. That's how important it was to me. So here we go. Man. All right. Here we go. So I just had a conversation with my mother yesterday, and it was really good for both of us, I think. And afterwards, I decided to go ahead and write it down. I wrote it down, you know, what we had talked about a little bit, and the stuff that I feel like I need to let go of is what I wrote down. So my name's John Bledsoe. I'm 42 years old, and I have just now released some trauma from when I was 12. To put it in perspective, you know, that's 30 years of living a way that I thought was okay because I didn't know any better. So I didn't know what I didn't know, and that's allowing me to now understand that I know what I know now, which is a lot more than what I didn't know back then. So I just processed this trauma from when I was 12, and I realize now that was part of the why behind a lot of my decision-making process. And if you don't know that, when you make decisions, you actually have a process of how you make those decisions. I don't think I was fully aware, even 10 years ago. My awareness is a lot more extreme right now of why I'm making decisions, because I analyze them now and I observe, and in order to understand what it is that I am deciding and why I'm deciding it. So for that trauma, a lot of the things I've done in my life are because I was still holding on to a little bit of this trauma. And I just want to share this and get it out and be done with it, so maybe somebody else can understand and it'll help them as well, raising their awareness on their decision-making process, and what trauma can actually, holding on to that trauma can actually do to a person, and the places that it will put you without you understanding why, because you think you're making decisions that are going to lead you to what you want, but really you're making decisions to get you away from what you don't want to have to deal with. So I wanted to leave Indiana. I wanted to leave all the people that, I spent most of my life in Indiana, being raised there, born and raised, and so you go to school and you got all the schoolmates and people and all the friends that you have growing up while you living in the neighborhoods. And so what happened when I was 12, my dad was arrested for weed. I don't know how much, and I can't remember exact details, but it was a big deal because Dad was the provider for our family. And by age 12, I was already scared of my dad. I grew up before the age of 8 in I think it was Taylorsville. It was the name of the town. But basically, we lived in an abandoned house until I was about 7 or 8 years old. And my dad was a person that was a hippie, and he loved to be able to take care of everything himself. So us being raised in the abandoned house, he was smart enough. He knew how to dig his own well. He had a generator with battery power. We lived basically off-grid, so to speak, which is the new thing to do nowadays, is live off-grid. But back then, in 1981, 1982, 83, it wasn't as widely as accepted as it is now. And so when I was about 8 years old, we moved into Franklin, which was a suburb, a small town, so to speak. And when I was 8, I was still naive. Obviously, being a little kid, I had no idea what was going on, or, because before then I was basically a country boy, just living and enjoying life and not having to worry about what people in town thought, because there was no real close neighbors to us, and we didn't have a bunch of friends. We had a couple, but not a bunch. So anyway, when I was 12, he was arrested for weed, and it was a big deal, and I was completely oblivious to the fact. Even when the cops arrested him, they came in our house and arrested him at like 5 or 6 in the morning, and I was still asleep. I didn't even know he got arrested. And it was like a few weeks later he finally told us what had happened, and within that conversation, he was definitely distraught. He was not feeling good about himself. I could tell he was upset, and probably sad or mad, or going through all those emotions that you go through when you get arrested. So in that conversation, he mentioned something about, if you guys just want me to leave, then I'll leave. And me, being the naive 12-year-old that I was, I told him to leave. I said, yeah, get out. You need to go ahead and go then. And mind you, I'm already scared of this guy. It was the 4th grade. I broke my left arm playing basketball at the boys club, and I was just playing with another kid, and he was trying to steal my ball or whatever, or at least I thought he was. And so when I was fighting over the ball, he fell on the back of me, and my arm snapped, cracked. It cracked more than anything. And I didn't want to get in trouble for my dad, so I didn't say anything to anybody, and I just went and sat down. And the boys club was a public place, and we was allowed to go there as kids and play basketball, and like after school we was allowed to go there until our parents come to pick us up. So my parents come and get me. I go home that night, and he was trying to tell me to get firewood in, and I told him I couldn't because my arm hurt so bad. So ended up going to the hospital, get the cast on, and that time I didn't get in trouble. Every time I've hurt myself, I really didn't get in trouble with my dad, but I was scared to, because he would always say, don't get in trouble, and I realize now that why he didn't want me to get in trouble. So anyway, so the year after, when I was 9 years old, I got hit by a car while I was riding my bike. I went to the playground at the school to play basketball, I believe it was, and when I was leaving, I was going out of the parking lot, and I got hit by a drunk driver, flipped up over the car, back of my head busted out the windshield, and then I landed in the gravel driveway of the old Master's Pizza. And in that moment, after I got hit by a car, I was so scared of my dad that I got up, tried to get back on my bike, which was actually destroyed, and tried to start walking home. And I was limping home because my left ankle had got hit by the car, and it was pretty bad shape. Luckily, somebody ran out of the old Master's Pizza and got that guy's license plate and told me to sit down and called the ambulance and all that stuff. And that whole time that was happening, I was more afraid of getting in trouble with my dad than I was about anything else. All I could think of was, I can't get in trouble, I can't get in trouble, I can't get in trouble. Fast forward a couple of years later, when I'm 12, I was in bowling league, and I'd done Little League baseball. And so when I told him he needed to leave, that triggered him into an uncontrollable fit of rage, and I ran upstairs to hide from him. So I got in my room, and sure enough, he followed me upstairs with my bat, my baseball bat, and he proceeded to destroy my whole room. Ripped all my posters off the wall, destroyed all my trophies, was saying a lot of really mean things to me about how he provided everything, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have none of this. And the whole time the bat's swinging and he's destroying my things, and basically everything got ruined in my room. And after one of the last swings, he raised up the bat, because at this time I'm in my bed in the fetal position, crying my eyes out, freaking out, thinking he's about to fucking beat me with this bat. And I think the only thing that stopped him was when I pissed my pants, because that's what happened. He was like this, ready to hit me, and I pissed my pants. And that's when his fit of rage finally started to subside enough for him not to fucking beat me with a bat. So realizing that trauma was very deep and very painful, when you're 12 and you don't have anybody to talk to, and you don't have anywhere to go, and you don't know what's going on because you're still a naive 12-year-old, you just deal with it. And for him, after every fit of rage, because he blew up all the time, and it was now I realize that my dad was living in a disillusion. He was narcissistic, and he just wanted things to be his fucking way, and he felt like he deserved it because he provided for the family, which is how it was back then. The road less traveled. So you just be quiet about it. You don't talk about it no more, and everything's fine, because that just happened the other day. It's no big deal now. But what happens is you start making decisions from that young of an age with that type of trauma. You don't realize that's what you're doing. You're making decisions from that type of a trauma, from that type of behavior being presented to you during your upbringing. Makes you have a different set of values and a different set of decision-making skills. And it was it's probably when I was like 22, 23 years old that I feel like I finally became a man and started doing my own thing and started making my own decisions, that I had dealt with that trauma back then. And which is true. You know, a lot of times we can't just get rid of all the trauma all in one thing. So here I am, 42 years old, still releasing trauma from 30 years ago. You know, so a lot of my life I fed into his disillusion of, which I still kind of do, but I have my own disillusion, so to speak, if you want to call it that. But I think that a lot of people are awake to the fact that our government is not out for our best interest. You know, a lot of things like that lifestyle of just do what they say and fit in with the crowd and be like everybody else, like that's never been a part of John's life ever, because we come from being raised by someone who lived in a disillusion of the government's bad for you, police is bad for you, other people are bad for you, having friends is not good for you, having emotions is not good for you. You need to just bundle up your emotions and throw them away. And you know, so I was seeking my dad's approval a lot, and I wanted him to believe in me and be proud of me. So I bought a house when I was 22, and you know, I felt like I was living his dream, and I didn't understand that that's what I was doing. I was making decisions based on traumas from being raised by a person who lived in a disillusion, who was a narcissist, who was an angry person. And I know it's not okay now. Not okay to be making decisions like that. You have to get the proper information to make the proper decisions. You have to understand and be aware of how you're making decisions, why you're making those decisions. And if you need to change how you make decisions, then how do you change the way you were raised? And you don't change the way you were raised. What you do is you become aware of who you are. And you change how things are done. You know, Dad always hid smoking weed from us. He never did it in front of us. He would always go on a drive, you know. Now that I realize that's what he was doing, all those times he was going for a ride. And so I did. I made decisions, and I changed. And what I changed was I didn't hide it, you know. Over half our states now are legal for medical cannabis use and recreational cannabis use. So smoking weed's accepted now. Here we are 30 years later, and I'm dealing with traumas from back then because it wasn't okay. So, interesting fact is, I haven't even smoked weed in a week now, and this ain't the first time that I've quit smoking weed, but the other times I've quit smoking weed were forced because I've been arrested before myself, because I continued that disillusion of weed's okay, everything's fine, just do what you want, just don't get caught. Well, that's all fine and dandy, until you realize how much it's actually affecting your decision-making process and what you're doing with yourself. So one of the things that I changed, because by the time I was 20 years old, I had a daughter, and I was raising my daughter in a way that I didn't hide anything from her. And I was an angry drunk too. So when I was drinking alcohol, I would do the same types of fits of rage that my dad would. I would blow up, and you never knew when I was going to blow up or what would trigger me into blowing up. And you know, I was probably like 28 to 30 years old when I realized that I needed to quit drinking and taking pills and living the life the way I wanted to live it, because I realize now I was still kind of in that disillusion. My dad got divorced. Mom and dad got divorced, and dad slept on the couch for a couple years, and then he lived in a camper for a couple years. And I was 22 years old, bought my first house, because that's one thing dad did teach me, was a very strong work ethic. And he taught me many good skills for building in the residential field. So I was making good money enough to I could buy a house when I was 22. So I bought that house, and I wanted his approval, and I took care of him. I helped take care of him. Like, I let him live with me. He wouldn't live in the house. He had to stay in his little camper in my backyard, so it was pretty redneck. But like, after about a year or so of that, he finally came in the house and lived, and he got his shit together, got him a job, saved him up some money, and he bought the place right next door to me. Like, I was so excited to buy the house that I was getting away from my family, and I was finally going to be able to live my life and not have to deal with him. And I ended up having to still deal with him. Which wasn't a bad thing, because by then he had calmed down quite a bit, and the fights became fewer and far between. But it still affected me, having to deal with him. And now that I'm 42, I'm starting over again. On the road less traveled. It's okay to start over again. It's okay to process emotions from 30 years ago. You're doing an excellent job, John. Everything that you want is in your reality, and I have complete awareness of why I make certain decisions. So I've always been reaching for more, and I've always wanted to do more with my life, and I feel like I have a higher purpose in life other than just your regular 9 to 5 or 7 to 4 work schedule like construction does. I really just want to help people. I want to help you get to understanding where your awareness is at for yourself and how you can utilize it to benefit you instead of not benefit you. So let's just enjoy this little bit of road that isn't traveled by many. a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people are very good at concealing what really drives their decisions and how they make them. I did this for Mom too. You know, Mom, I love you bunches and I'm very proud of you, and you did the best you could, and me and Jay both know that, and we both love you very much for just loving us. You knew how to do that the whole time, so you did a great job, Mom, and I forgive you, Dad, even though he's dead and gone now. Yeah, I mean, literally, the guy didn't make it past 64 years old. He was so ate up with anger that cancer grew inside of him and killed him. It killed him because he was so full of hate and anger and rage and resentment and all those things that you carry being an angry person, living in a disillusion, and it not coming to fruit because you're not even in reality, of what's actually happened. You want to try to stay in this disillusion of everything's okay as long as I don't get caught. Probably not a good idea. So I love you guys. Really appreciate you all tapping in and showing John some love. He could probably use it. I really would love to get this Be Blessed Beautiful continually growing, and what I want is, I want you to understand what it's like to be alive. I want you to understand what it's like to be blessed. I want you to understand what it's like to be beautiful. And most of all, I want to build a symbol that everybody can recognize across the whole world, where language is no barrier. And when you see that symbol, I want you to feel safe. I want you to know that that symbol will lead you to the proper awareness, the proper information of doing proper decision making for what it is that you really want in life. I want you to process those emotions. I want you to get rid of all that stuff. You have to pour yourself out in order to be poured into. So, processing emotions, getting rid of all that luggage that you're carrying around is what's going to allow God to pour into you. And all you got to do is accept the fact that you're actually holding on to traumas. Accept the fact that there is a higher power than you that has your best interest in mind. And most of you don't even know. You don't even know what you don't know, because you haven't even allowed yourself to try to let go. Let go. Let it go. Make room. Empty out the pitcher. And your source energy, your God, your higher power is going to fill you up. Allow it to happen. God's timing. It's not going to happen how you think it's going to happen. It's like me, thought I dealt with it. Thought I was already over it. Thought and had been thinking that, well, why am I not getting blessed? Because I've dealt with my traumas and I've poured myself out before and I've not received any blessings. Well, there's your frequency. There's your frequency. You think God's gonna bless somebody who's talking about, I done that, and he ain't done shit for me? Really? Really, bro? Get out your head. Get out of your head. It's not gonna happen how you think. This is something you really gotta feel your way through, man. Emotional checkpoint, bro. Your kids don't like you. You're a grown adult and your kids don't like you. You're a grown adult and you're not even allowed to be a part of your child's life. What the hell did I do to cause that? It's my frequency, bro. It's my frequency. I thought I was okay. Thought I was right. Thought I was making good decisions. Thought I had changed. Truth is, there was still some junk in the trunk. God's so good to me though, bro. Like, I'm free. Look at me. We here. We got the sunshine. I'm breathing air. My legs work. Feet work. My hands work. Being alive is the blessing. Being alive. Being allowed to live. Now you understand why, besides the whole fact of I was killed in a car accident when I was 30 years old. Yo, my life's been nothing but fucking trauma after trauma up until I was 30. And it took killing me to understand that I need to be respecting life. I need to engulf myself. I need to plant myself in that joyous love for life and understand that being alive is the blessing. It took killing me to get that in my head and to start raising my awareness of where my decision-making process was at, what I was supposed to be doing for John, not for appeasing what my dad thought or building in some type of disillusion. Yeah. Now I'm living life at God's speed, and I couldn't be happier. Anyway, enough of the seriousness. Look at that beautiful sunshine. My God, it's my favorite. And check out this big pine cone. Oh, baby. That beautiful. That big trees. Man. You gotta love it, people. You gotta love it. So, it's John signing out. I love you. I love you a lot. I'm proud of you, John. Keep on keeping on. You'll see. We'll get there. We'll get it there. Peace.